Anyway, it's clove oil and bourbon. It's a very nice addition to the nicotine. But anyway, yeah, flavors. So that's sort of the discussion here. So anyway, this Valerie, Valerie type girl over here. Yeah, there she is. Professor Anton's professor girlfriendy thing. And conference report. They're talking about this sex stuff, which is a little bit, creepy. But anyway, to me, the angle of the subject is, well, I'm first on the subject of the sex thing. I mean, to me, some of it's a little bit way over talked. I mean, it's just this simple idea, this simple concept that, yeah, okay, we got the gender thing figured out. It doesn't have too much to do with intelligence and communicating as human beings. And so when we're doing that thing, when we're doing living our human life thing, anybody who's paying attention to these gender roles and this kind of stuff and discriminating and doing all that kind of, fuck that shit. All right? Humans are human, and they should have a certain right to a human dignity, and period. And so that takes care of all of that crap, in my opinion, as a principle. Now, what gets you off as an individual, yeah, that's where everything goes. There's all kinds of room for all kinds of different flavors. People like they have a different taste. And that's the thing I want to get to eventually in this conversation, is that sort of what screws up even parts of philosophy, is that people are coming at it from such different perspectives. Their pains and pleasures are different. Their associations are different. So they don't even, you could say a word, and the word has a different impact on the person. I mean, a different thing happens, a different chain reaction when that word hits their eardrum. And it's really significant. I mean, I even pointed out a little bit in a video on one of the economics videos, because the guy was using the word slavery to describe, like, somehow the government was enslaving people by taxing them to pay for services or some kind of, and it was such an insult to the word slavery, because to me that's just stealing a word that should have almost not sacred, but I mean, it's it's got a meaning and a context we shouldn't be over yet. Slavery, the idea that you can chain a person and own them, and it still sort of exists, because we own people by circumstance. We chain them with circumstances, and then we abuse the desperation we create. And but anyway, I don't want to get into that whole subject. But the point is that word is, people are seeing something completely different. And this whole gender thing and sex thing. I mean, I'm sorry to use a word that you people don't seem to like, but it's all just perversion. We're just perverted, all right? Because nature there's nothing built into the structure of nature that it anticipated the fact that we would create complex cultures where people would live in very strange and weird environments and circumstances and cities and all kinds of strange, go to schools and go to this and do this and do that nature had no way of anticipating what we would psychologically impose through this civilization thing. And I think it happens to some of the higher primates. I mean, I think they got some real perversion going on too, just because their social order has gotten so complicated. And that's the liability, but it is just perversion. There is a basic normative functionality, a cliche male and a cliche female, and their roles aren't completely irrelevant to that natural history and what has worked through time in terms of a structure. But there's nothing, like I said, we're smart enough to know that that's all bullshit. We don't have to live out any of that crap. There's no right or wrong here in terms of the real point is to get the most you can out of your sexuality, your capacity to love or to desire, and but that's where it gets, because it does tie into this thing we're calling emotions and dependencies and our role playing and where we feel most comfortable, and it's really hard. There's no way of there's a definition, like I said, of what the cliche, not even cliche, but it's normal. I mean, there's no other word for it. It's perhaps by numbers becoming abnormal to be normal, but I mean, there's what we're functionally built to do. What's optimized, what the physiology is optimized, how it's optimized to perform, what the optimum performance is. Intention, I mean, you can't call it intention from nature, but I mean, yeah, we've been designed by billions of years, and our structure is to perform a certain way, and people have been perverted out of that performance, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that the perversion's the right word. I mean, we have perverted ourselves. So anyway, but it's like you have the extremes of somebody who, it's like I'm not a real, social human person, and other people be completely dependent on that sociality. Some people, you got to press 17,000 buttons for them to figure out whether they're in love or not. And for me, it's one button. You've got a V on it. It's not that complicated. But anyway, regardless, the subject I really want to get to is just that idea that we do all have different definitions of words and different emotional reactions to where a conversation is going, or what we emotionally react to words, even to concepts. Somebody could say 1,000,000 dead humans, and in one person that's like, oh my God, 1,000,000 dead, and another person like, oh yeah, well, so what? We've killed millions and millions die every day. Who cares? Blah blah. It's just completely different reactions to the world we're living in, and to the conversation. And I guess that's what I wanted to get to, is that in the end, it's gonna make it troublesome to have the conversation, because we don't have a sanitized, sterile language. The language is part of Fred's poetry. I guess that's what I wanted to get to. Was Fred did a few videos on poetry, and then he did this kind of weird sex video stuff. I don't mean weird, perverted. I just mean weird in the sense that it just illustrates the point, I guess, very well for me. At the end of his last video, he played music that really meant something to him. Really was important in his maturation. And it's like, yeah, to me, it was like a pile of shit. I mean, it didn't mean a thing to me. I mean, it didn't not even a tinkle, not even a nothing. It's a big flush. What the hell, And it's just so. I mean, that's the real problem we're facing, is that we're living in the same world, and we have such different attachments, attractions, and repulsions, and that's what really gets to the core of this, trying to do this sterile philosophy stuff in that environment. But that's my argument, is that there is the truth, and there is a way. We should try to have that sterile conversation, because it's really the only legitimate one. Because there really is no arguing about, the value of a song. That gets a little silly. Or even and what that represents. I mean, whether that represents some way of feeling connected, or less isolated, or whether you feel alienated or attached to a society or a culture, or all that crap. And all that crap is just that. It's crap as philosophy. It just breaks it. I mean, if we're going to allow ourselves to have emotional reactions, well, that's inevitable. So that's the wrong way to put it. We can't allow, though, our emotional reactions to be descriptive of anything. They just have to be something we accept in us. We can accept that there's a certain qualitative meaning to it, but we can't use the emotional reaction as a part of the philosophy. It has to be something the philosophy acknowledges, but not something the philosophy allows the philosophying to be built out of. We could say, for instance, that poetry is important to human beings because human beings need to feel connected, or need to feel, need something to inspire them, or need something to energize them or motivate them. They need to see beauty. They need to be torn by beauty. They need these different things as motivational aspects of their existence, and we get to say that as a truth. But as soon as we start saying that, the tree grows in the forest, and blah, 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 as soon as we start saying that mystical picture, or that little thing that you react to in some emotional way, has any real value, then we're in trouble. Then the philosophy is going to break down, because that value only exists as a projection of yours. It only exists because you believe it, because you feel it. And I'd argue that that's what gets in the way of this whole discussion, because desire, which really is the motivating force for human beings, is just made out of projections. I mean, there's no rational reason for so much of what we do. And that's why so much of what we do is so fucking irrational, especially as a society. Because we're trying to take our subjective feelings, and it's not even we're trying to, but we're allowing them to pervert our politics, pervert what can be defined as a truth, a real truth, and so then we don't fix problems in any kind of rational way. We make all kinds of irrational investments in nonsense because it's emotionally comforting, and that's, subjectively for one individual human. I will vote based on what I feel, and that's just stupid. We have to vote on what our best guess is. The truth is best represented by, or is best for something bigger than ourselves. Something than that is something more credible than what I feel. I mean, it has to be some kind of thought, some sort of logic, not just some sort of feeling, and not some sort of self-interest, and not, all that crap is just not going to work. Yeah, something like that anyway. That's enough video, I think. Yep.